Hey, there we are.
Hey, we're here again. It's been a minute.
It has been.
Where have you been?
Where have I been?
Where in the
Well,
world
last
is Matt
week,
Williams?
yeah, last week I went to Toronto.
Ooh, another
Toronto
Canadian
in
destination.
the Canadian, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It was nice. It was nice. It was actually the first time. One thing it was interesting. I changed planes in Vancouver.
that's weird.
Um,
So you
I
went from
flew
Seattle, presumably, up to SeaTac to
Seattle
YVR, and
to
yeah,
Vancouver to Toronto, and
interesting.
because I expensed a premium exec or whatever not premium whatever the coach plus or economy
Premium
plus
economy, is that right?
premium economy, yeah.
Economy plus, I think it
But
depends on the
then
airline. Yeah.
I bought a first class because
Ooh.
first class is on that flight. It was like $200 difference.
Oh, that's not bad.
Yeah, it was like
It,
$1,300 for the coach, and then $200 more, $1,500 for first class. Like done.
yeah, I'm trying to think
Um,
because normally what Canadians would do is like cross the border, cross the U.S. because it's cheaper, and then get
right.
back into Canada, kind of thing. So I wonder,
Okay.
yeah, I wonder if you got a deal because the plane was half full or something like that. There aren't as many people here,
Yeah,
obviously.
yeah, maybe. I don't know why, but so I took it and but transfer it was just a flight into Canada and then
Hmm.
go through customs and then change the other plane, but it was like
Right.
a 40-minute or an hour long connection. I thought, "Ooh, this might be tight." But man, Vancouver, going through customs and all, super easy. It was
Really, that's good to
amazing.
hear.
It was fantastic. And then doing the on the return,
Hmm.
Toronto. I did Toronto to Minneapolis to
Right.
Seattle, and you go through customs, U.S. customs in Toronto, and
Oh, before you even
global
board, right,
entry.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, global entry is. It was like I was the only person there, and it was super easy, fast. It was amazing. It was a great. It's like, oh, I forgot airline travel was this easy.
Now you're saying global entry. Is that like the TSA Plus or Nexus or whatever?
Yeah, so it's like a so you get TSA. Is it TSA Plus? Yeah,
I think so.
whatever. But then
Pre-check.
that's for
Sorry.
going through TSA PreCheck. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's for going through security at any. When you get to the airport, you go through security. You get TSA. What do we
Pre-check.
call it? PreCheck.
We should be careful with
Um,
TSA Plus. They're going to come up with a whole other revenue stream.
TSA PreCheck, and that lets you go through hopefully a shorter line, though sometimes it's a longer one. But then
Mhm.
you don't have to take your shoes off, and you don't have to take your laptop out, and all the other things. Global entry is for coming back into the U.S.
Right.
and it lets you go through a kind of a faster line because you just use basically a hand scan instead of answering a bunch of questions because they've already done the interview with you beforehand, and so you go through a faster line. Oh, and then it's also a faster line, for a regular coming through, yeah, customs in the
Hmm.
US. There's often a lot of people, and so
Right.
global entry means you skip that line and go to just a machine, and then hand that piece of paper that the machine produces to somebody, and you're done. And so I
And
was
they just
able to
ask
do
you
that
what,
in
like
Toronto,
nothing to
and it's just
declare kind of thing, and you just
yeah,
fly through.
yeah, yeah. I mean, you check those check boxes on the display, and that's it.
Gotcha.
Um, in fact, I was a little confused. Actually, the guy who was doing the collecting the paper, he actually
Hmm.
did say anything to declare. It's like, God, it's been a while since I've asked you that question. Any suggestions? I was like,
Oh no, no,
what do
don't
I,
make
what
jokes.
do I do? Yeah, and I just said, no. He's like, okay, great, go.
On your way.
Um, do you have any? Are you in any program like that in
I,
for
I am,
Canada?
yeah. So I'm in Nexus, and I think the global entry
Okay,
is. I think I've seen that when I fly internationally. I don't know. I've definitely gone through
yeah,
it before. But a lot of times
yeah.
they're asking me weird things like, "Do you have any sandwiches with meat in it?" It
Oh
depends
yeah,
on the
yeah,
country that you're going through. Or did you happen to bring an
yeah,
apple or a banana? I guess maybe that was
yeah,
Australia. But yeah, they always have these
yeah.
these weird questions for me.
Yeah, I remember once I was flying to New Zealand, I think it was, and they asked the question. There were dogs at the baggage carousels, sniffing everybody's bags. And on the plane, they say, if you have anything to declare, declare it. If you have any food, anything that's, any type of food, declare it or let them know, and they might have you get rid of it. And when you get off the plane, there's always a trash can right there, and people are like dumping, like pulling out all their things and dumping it. Um, and then there's a few people that forget. They
Right.
forget. They forget they had this massive roast beef sandwich in their luggage. Um, but and so I've seen one person. I think it was New Zealand. I saw one person going in that had that roast beef sandwich, and the dog found it, and they were like, "Oh my god, I forgot all about it." But or they might have actually. It might have been more like, "Oh yeah, I got the so what?" And they were given a ticket for about $1,000 ticket. So I saw that, and the next time I did that flight, because I've been to New Zealand a few times and Australia a
Right.
few times, I don't know which one it was. And so I saw that and thought, okay, well, I got to get rid of all. I've got a bunch of these like Cliff Bars and those types of things. So let me dump everything into the trash, and that way I won't have any problems.
Right.
And I get to the person asking questions. They said, "Do you have anything to declare?" I says, "Oh no, I got rid of everything in the trash." Well, what was it? It was like these Cliff Bars. And it was, next time, just tell us what you have. We will tell you to dump it or keep it. That kind of stuff you could have kept.
Oh shoot.
Ah,
I've
but I
definitely
mean,
done that because Cliff Bars are handy.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But then there's things like a roast beef sandwich. I mean that meat. I guess I don't know what's in it, but often I remember driving along between, what are they, provinces or states in Australia,
Right.
driving between the different states. They want to make sure you don't bring apples or other types of fruit
Oh,
into the
between the
other
states.
state.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've seen the same thing for, I guess that was Canada to the U.S. to Washington State. They're very careful about their apples.
Interesting. Isn't that how apples sort of spread throughout the U.S. though?
Yeah,
Eh,
yeah,
yeah, interesting. Okay. Well.
yeah. I know. Apples are. I've often heard that apples are. There's something special we have to do to apples in order to keep like a Honey Crisp tasting like a Honey Crisp, because normally they will cross
Really?
pollinate, I think,
Oh, right. So keep them separate, kind of
and
thing.
so naturally they will change, and we have to do things. And but even that, with whatever we do, Honey Crisps don't taste like Honey Crisps anymore.
Interesting. People always
Not
complain to
as
me
sweet.
that they don't like Golden Delicious apples. You know, the big red ones.
Mm,
Maybe I've talked
yeah.
about this on this podcast before. Sorry, but I do like them. What I do find though is that over the time, over the course of my life at least, they seem to taste more watery than they used to.
Yeah,
So I do
yeah.
wonder if other apples are changing too, because those are one of the
I
ones that I
think
really like.
we might have said in the description on Twitter that we were going to talk about Apple, and
I get
we
confused.
are. We're talking about apples, and so
I
we're
yeah,
right
I mean,
on point.
I am an Apple fanboy. I guess it's
Yeah,
come to light at this point in time on this podcast. So yes, I'm happy to talk about either the company and or the
yeah.
products. Having grown up
Honey
on
Crisp,
like not an apple farm, but
Golden
a farm
Delicious,
that had
all
apples.
those.
Yeah. Yes, all of them.
Yeah,
Yeah, we can be the
yeah,
the Bubba Gump of apples over
yeah,
here.
yeah.
Did you
um,
are you privy to any Apple news here? Did you get any new products? Did you get a new, what was it, iPad? I
I
think were launched again.
I
They
I
keep
don't
announcing new
I don't
stuff.
have any of it. I don't know anything. All I have is my I updated my AirPods. I've got a little case around it, so it's
Right.
uh, but but I updated that. And that's it. That's the only Apple device. I asked permission from my wife to get an iPhone, but I haven't been able to get it yet.
It hasn't been approved yet. The boss of the family.
Hasn't been approved. So
Now
I'm
on the
hoping.
AirPods, because a friend also just recently got some, so I was kind of going through them because he hadn't gotten to the pros at this point in time.
Yeah,
So there are some features of the AirPods, or it was the AirPods Pro that
AirPods
he did
Pro.
not
Yeah.
know about, and I'm wondering if you know about.
Hmm.
Like, have you tried the lossless audio that Apple has in Apple Music? Or have you tried out Apple Music recently because people don't normally use it, but it's
I,
kind of surprisingly
I
okay.
don't use Apple Music.
It might be worth looking at for the spatial audio
Yeah.
re-releases of some albums that you know.
Okay.
In particular, I found the one for Fleetwood Mac's Mirage was really good. I don't know if you know that album.
Really? Okay.
But it's a good album if you like Fleetwood Mac. I mean, everybody
Uh-huh.
knows Rumors, of
Yeah.
course. Mirage came out
Sure.
after it, in fact, shortly after it. So it's got that same sort
Uh-huh.
of feel. But it's in spatial audio, so as you turn your ear, you can kind of hear different instruments. It's almost like you're in or on the stage.
Oh.
It's weird because
Oh,
you don't feel like
wow.
you're in front of the stage. You feel like you're a little bit. You know when you're at a concert and you're
In.
just at the
Yeah.
microphone, it
Yeah.
feels like you're placed right there, which is cool, but maybe not the same as being an audience, but like an intimate kind of experience.
Right.
And the audio quality, I don't know what they're doing with Bluetooth because Bluetooth can only hit a certain bandwidth, but the
Right.
audio quality is really good. And yeah, and,
Wow.
there must be a delay or something like that. They got to be buffering
Yeah.
or something to make it sound good. But it sounds really good, and it's spatial recording. There's a few more in there if you go into the playlist. I'll
Right.
show you. But yeah, if you do get a new iPhone, I think they give you like a trial now to a lot of their services.
Okay.
Apple
Yeah.
One, I believe, is the one that they'll give
Yeah.
you like fitness
Yeah.
and movies and TV and a bunch of other stuff. But
Yeah.
might be worth a try. It's surprisingly okay.
Yeah.
They've
I
got
mean,
demos on.
all I've
Yeah,
seen with the spatial is watching a YouTube video on my phone, and you hear the whole video
right.
turning, and it's now over there. But I didn't think that it would like put you in the space, and you would
Yeah, it's
hear
I don't want to
that's
say 3D sound or whatever the Dolby Atmos is because I think they do have Atmos stuff as
yeah,
well.
yeah,
It the YouTube stuff I think is in stereo. It feels like there's a little bit more to it when it comes to the spatial audio. So
yeah.
it's more than just the left and right channel. It's not surround, but it definitely has
Okay,
a little bit more in terms of the placement of other instruments as opposed to like left and
right,
right channel.
right.
So it might be things that are like further back in the mix or further forward in the mix.
Hmm.
I guess
Okay.
my main complaint is that the vocals felt like they were on my nose, like they're right here the whole time, which is
yeah,
fine. It's
yeah.
just a little bit different. If you close your eyes and try to
Right,
imagine where you are in the space, it feels a little bit odd.
right.
But the quality is, I I know the album, so I know the quality is good. But you know
Yeah,
when you've got those test albums that you listen to test your headphones and
right,
new
right.
speakers and stuff like that. Yeah,
Huh.
Fleetwood Mac's up
That
there for me
is
in terms of test albums.
that's pretty cool.
Would recommend it.
Mhm.
What are we grabbing here?
No, I'm just putting a pad down on the floor because I'm
Oh,
standing.
I
And
assumed you were going to get like an old 3D spatial audio headset.
no,
You had
no.
just sitting on the side.
Although I do
Those
have,
are always gimmicky.
I had, yeah, something that was like I feel like it was a wireless headphone that was it. There was a ring that went around, but then there was so they were open headphones, um, and they had several drivers all
Drivers, yeah.
pointing in different directions inside the headphones. I want to say they were from Sony.
Okay.
And this would have been 10, 20 years ago. But of course it was all kind of, just playing around with the set that, I mean, they weren't doing anything special to the recording. They were having to
Right.
do something, fudge with it. I don't know what they were doing.
Yes. So the tuning, I think Bose is known for doing that. People
Yeah.
will make fun of Bose a lot of times, but in terms of
Yeah.
like the surround kind of feel, I feel like Bose
Yeah.
actually does a pretty good job in like my car, for example, is a good
Right.
spot for like that Bose tuning because I don't think the speakers are any
Right.
high quality or anything like that. It's just about the
Yeah.
tuning and the tweaking. But I wonder if that's what Sony was doing, was just tweaking the like the frequency response of the different drivers to make it sound a
Right.
little bit different. Like if they know the bass is always going to be in the back
Yeah.
and put the low frequency toward the drivers in the back of the head, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah,
Hmm.
I'm always here for the new sound stuff. I feel
Yeah.
like it's
Yeah.
often it just doesn't work most of the time, I guess is what I'm saying. And I'm surprised that the AirPods Pro actually do
Yeah.
have some benefit when it comes to audio quality.
Well, I saw I watch a lot of YouTube, and so I
Mhm.
saw there's this video of somebody talking about the unknown features of the AirPods. Like, "Ooh, there's unknown features. I better watch this. And they were going through basically like the standard features. And like, really, are these unknown to some people? I mean, like tapping to do one thing and holding to do a different thing and sliding up and down to turn the volume up and down. And it's like, that's okay. That's using the earphones, the AirPods. I don't know. I mean, that's on the AirPods Pro 2, but not the previous AirPods, the sliding to,
Hmm.
but I don't think they were a secret.
Well, when you pair them, it makes you, and this is one of those things, like if you need a tutorial for it, maybe
Oh
it's
yeah.
hidden UI, which it absolutely is
Yeah.
hidden UI. And if you skip the tutorial, then maybe you don't know
Yes.
about it. But that
Right. Yeah.
that is one of those things with hidden UI. If it's not obvious, then people will need
Do
to
you
know about
have
it.
the new AirPods Pro
I, I do,
2?
yeah. And I will
I
say
thought the
yeah,
Yeah,
go ahead.
when you turn on the spatial audio and doing that little, that was pretty cool. The fact that you take a photo of your face and kind of move it around, and
Right.
then over at your ear. And what I thought was great about that was now there's this display that's right here. You can't see the display because your eyes are looking forward, but and then it asks you to turn your head and you feel the haptic response on the phone when you've gotten too
Oh,
far, when you've gotten far enough, and then you click the other way and you feel it. I don't know,
that's
maybe I
smart.
also heard it in my ear as well. It's like, that is, well, I couldn't have, because I had no ears. I don't know. It was pretty cool.
I
It was
obviously still
wild.
haven't done that part, and the
Yeah.
reason I know, like, I've not done it is, like, I still don't like this feature because when I go to use it, it feels too distant for me. It feels like my
Mm,
ears are
yeah.
out to the side of my head, like outside of the
Right.
frame, kind of thing.
Right.
I I should though, and I feel like you're right. Like
Yeah.
those non-verbal cues, like the haptic
Yeah.
cues about where you are
Yeah.
awesome. I also notice
Yeah.
like the directions on the Apple Watch, like they'll double tap to go left and triple tap to go right, I think it
Yep.
is when you're
Yep.
walking down the street,
Yeah.
which is pretty handy. Yeah,
Yeah.
very, very cool.
Yeah. And now you've got the haptic keyboard on the iPhone. Um,
Right.
as you can turn that on, and it's super subtle, but it's enough to feel, oh, I've just pressed that key on the keyboard on my phone that has no, it's it's like magic.
It is pretty magic. I think some people don't like it, and I think there is a little bit to be said about battery life. But I
Yeah.
recall I went to SIGGRAPH once in my life, but I recall the time I
Mhm.
went there, they were demoing. Oh man, it must have been 2015, 2014 kind of thing. But they were demoing haptic stuff
Mm.
before anyone had adopted. And I felt like
Yeah.
when I looked at the demo, there was a Japanese scientist there going over like why haptics is important. They were talking about
Mhm.
accessibility and things like that, which totally made sense to me.
Yeah.
Also, like the different ways of
Right.
communicating, like tap tap stuff like that. And then I thought, like, this is so niche. No one's ever going to use this. It won't be implemented in anything. And I think one of the first
Right.
things to come out was the trackpad actually started to get feedback in it via
Right.
haptics to tell
Yep.
you that you've clicked because they wanted to like remove a lot of the functionality because the clicker would stop working, I
Right.
guess, in the trackpads. And then I thought, okay, that's pretty good. And then once they started
Yeah.
adding it to the iPhone and like different devices, yeah, the watch, the AirPods, maybe not the AirPods, sorry,
Right.
but into the other devices, I realized like, yeah, this is actually handy for everybody, kind of thing. So the
Yeah.
use case that they
Yeah.
had was narrow, but also if applied more generally, the use case is actually pretty
Right.
large. Which is like, yeah, I never
Well,
would have saw it on my own.
another another use for that kind of response that I heard about on a podcast. It might have been, I don't know, 99% Invisible or some
Right.
other interesting, amazing podcast. Was they were talking about this, for people who are blind or can't see really well.
Mhm.
There's this like a chest plate, and the chest plate has a camera looking forward,
Okay.
and it can basically, uh, based on where walls are and where openings are and what's in front of them, it can kind of tap against the chest in different places.
Oh,
And if
that's
you're
really cool.
not able to see, it is enough sensation for you to be able to, it takes a while to get used to it, but to basically see and walk and see what's in front of you based on what's being tapped. I there's a wall on my left
Right.
side because I'm feeling all the taps over here. And I mean, it was like, wow, that is so cool.
Yeah, definitely. It's like
Yeah,
another
yeah,
sense that you've unlocked
yeah,
basically
yeah.
to help you for people who are
Right.
vision impaired.
Because I mean, I've
Very
seen
cool.
that for like gamers chairs where they just rumble.
Oh,
Where
right.
there's an explosion.
Yeah, yeah.
Where it's just
It's
there's one thing.
of all the people who need more stuff, it's definitely not gamers. That's really cool.
Um,
Yeah, I feel like
wow.
those cases where tech is actually doing good is where I feel like, like I'm happy to be in the industry kind of thing because there's so
Right.
much that tech does that honestly could be better. I mean, self-driving cars are cool and
Yeah.
sending spaceships to the moon or what have you is still pretty
Right.
cool. But also, I feel like there's a lot of problems that we could be solving and working with these
Mhm.
communities to help, as opposed to, yeah, creating the next haptic watch for me to know.
Right.
I don't know, reminder of the YouTube streamers coming online or something like that, or
Yeah.
yeah, those blast cage things for like in the shooter.
Yeah.
I think they would like run through your chest to tell you that you get
Yeah.
shocked.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've
I'm here
never
for
had a
like
need for those. Yeah.
yeah, just beat me either. I'm not here for the extra stuff or
Yeah.
those platforms like the ones that you could run in any direction to have
Oh,
you
right.
running
Yeah.
game. Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's one thing that gamers love. It's exercise, right? Sorry.
Yes. Yes.
Sorry, I stole that from my girlfriend reviews. I'm not sure if you've ever seen that channel on YouTube. It's quite good.
No.
It's about reviewing. So a lot of video games are male fantasy. It's just kind of what they
Uh-huh.
are. A lot of it's like power trip
Uh-huh.
kind of stuff, like give people guns and superpowers and stuff like
Right.
that. But the premise of the series is to review a game that your boyfriend or significant other is playing. While they are playing it, you might be like backseat gaming or playing with them kind of
Uh-huh.
thing, trying to enjoy it with them. Because chances are they're in your living room taking up space,
Right.
you're hearing the same sounds over and over, that kind of stuff. And this one was about, I think it was like Wii Sports or something like that. And the joke
Uh-huh.
was, yeah, because you know what gamers love is to like actually do the sport.
Which explains why they're sitting inside in a dark room. Yeah.
Yes, yes, exactly. Maybe it was like a Zelda. I think there was a Zelda
Yeah.
re-release that you could only use like the motion
Okay.
controls, and people weren't
Oh,
weren't
okay.
happy
Yeah.
about it because they just want to sit on the couch and do their thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
What else is
Well,
new? What
thinking
else?
of
You're on a podcast this morning, I heard. You
yeah, I
got
was on a
something?
podcast stream. What I don't know what these things count as if there's a video component. It's not really a podcast, is it?
Oh, you don't know like which quota box to put them under, is what you're
Yeah.
saying.
So anyway, it was Justin Garrison from AWS, and he's got this stream called Containers from the Couch,
Nice.
and I got to talk a little bit about infra and do a demo. And whenever you do a demo in a presentation, I
Right.
wonder, well, how long is it going to take? And I was thinking, well, okay, well, infra is it's magic what it does, but it doesn't take that long to go through everything. And so it's we're going to be like 15 minutes and done.
Right.
But we took about 45 minutes for that demo,
That's
and
awesome.
it was great. It was so much fun. Yeah, with of course, with infra, it's all about gaining access to your Kubernetes clusters. And so what I did
Right.
was I added a AWS EKS cluster. I
Okay.
already added that yesterday because I wasn't sure how long it would take for load balancers to come up and all that. So I added that already. But then I added I logged or I added him as a user to my server. And then enabled him to get access to my cluster. And then he was able to log in for the first time, never using the product, log in and just had access to my Kubernetes cluster in my account on AWS, and it just worked. And it
That's
was
awesome.
magic. I
Now,
mean,
now
that
I
is
should know.
magic.
I should know more about infra, but I'm assuming you could put him
Yeah.
in a namespace as well.
Yeah, I mean, we could say that he's a viewer in the default namespace, and an admin in this other namespace, and
Very
maybe
cool.
just look at logs for the whole cluster.
Yeah, see, especially when you're talking about a demo like that, because there's a lot of
Yeah,
scenarios, like especially
yeah,
around namespacing, there's a lot of scenarios that can come up. So I
yeah,
honestly, I understood the login part of infra.
yeah.
I apologize, I haven't dug too much into it. But the namespacing part, And the different levels of permissions that are now in
Yeah,
Kubernetes could certainly take a little while to talk about because
yeah,
it's changed a lot.
and yeah, and then he was able to, he was in as a viewer. I
Mhm.
was able to revoke his access, and the next command he tried to run, it didn't work because he no longer had access. And
Nice.
then I gave him a different level of access, and the next command he ran, he was able to get more data.
Very cool.
And then move him from maybe a dev. I had created a group 1, 2, 3, and I created a dev group, and we transitioned him from the first group to a second group, and he had different permissions because he was in this other group. Now he had access to 3 clusters rather than just one cluster,
That's
and it
awesome.
was, it's something that an administrator does, and it takes them 5 seconds to do, and
Or
super
more,
easy
yeah.
for, yeah.
Yeah, the old days of
No,
Windows, you
on
do
the
that
infra
at
side, it takes super easy. On the
yeah, it's super
Kubernetes side,
fast,
doing
right?
it manually, so it's
It
painful.
it's awful. Or in the old days, like you would do it on one server. Like you tell someone to
Right,
do it, and they would walk to their desk and do
right.
it. So let's say 5, 10 minutes, and then once they've
Yeah,
done it, then there's a sync thing that has to happen as well.
yeah,
And once the sync happens, it may or may not grab all the things that were updated
right.
and may or may not reply. And then you've got people who are
Yep,
logged in for like 3 days, even after they've been.
yeah,
A lot of the times it was contractors for me, but like they would continue to have access for well after the time that we had already set. Like, hey, this should have expired.
yeah.
So it's nice to see that we've finally gotten to the point where we can immediately kind of lock things down as
Mhm.
opposed to assuming
Yeah.
that things are done immediately, whereas they actually don't. That's really cool.
So one thing I did last week was, I used our API to, create a integration in Zapier.
Nice.
And so now anything that Zapier works with could be a it could control your access to
Oh,
Kubernetes. And
oh
so,
yeah. If Matt has a job
Google
today, he
Docs,
can't access the cluster.
yeah, Google Docs or Airtable or, PagerDuty creates a new incident. Great, that Ryan and Matt now automatically have admin access to this cluster.
You think I'm
Um,
joking, but I'm not. I've definitely used like if this and that and Zapier to like fill a
yeah,
spreadsheet full of entries. So like if there's no entry
yeah.
for jogging today, then Matt doesn't have Kubernetes access.
We used at Datadog for the events database in
Right.
Airtable. I mean that could trigger getting more access to different clusters, and eventually with infra we'll eventually cover other,
I like it.
not just Kubernetes, but all the things.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
So
it
if
was it was
time to next
pretty
demo is
magical.
next week minus like whatever 7 days, then Matt gets access to the demo cluster.
Sure, yeah. Yep. So
I do like those so the serverless and I know like trigger mesh is out there and there's other open source ways of doing it, but using like endpoints as like those webhook endpoints as triggers so that
mhm,
like you can hit something and something kicks off is really
yep.
powerful, as well as the other way around, like setting like a time trigger. The if this then
Mhm,
that for everybody stuff or the Zapier for
yeah,
everybody is
right.
kind of awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, and being able to plug that um into your phone, using on the iPhone using
Right.
shortcuts. Like, one of the problems I have with my phone is that, I'm using an iPhone 10,
Hmm.
10s Max,
Yep.
um, and when I'm, by 6 p.m., I'm pretty much out of power. I'm like, it's the battery is dead.
Right.
And yeah, there's a few apps I've loaded pretty recently that are sucking up a lot of the power, but still, I'm dead. And now, so I can either figure out what are those apps and like r- somehow figure out which ones they are and maybe remove them or lower the amount of background access they have. But it's a pain. So one thing I've done recently is, set up a shortcut that, as soon as I unplug it, it
Hmm.
switches to, uh, um, was it low power mode?
Nice.
And so that way the background app refresh or whatever shuts off. A bunch of other things shut off. As soon as I plug it back in, low power mode goes away, and so it can charge. It charges. But that way, when I first did it, I was at, like at 9 or 10 o'clock at night. I was at 30% batteries. Like, wow, this is like a whole new phone. And then, I mean, because those shortcuts you can plug into, if this and that, and if it goes below a certain threshold, then trigger some other process that runs, or using, was it Pushcut? And there's a few other services that
I've heard of Pushcut. Cool.
will. Pushcut, I think, is one that will let you do. I think if you have a process that's running up in the cloud somewhere, whether if it's in that or Zapier, it can then have something automatically done on your phone,
Oh,
because
nice.
Pushcut will receive. I think it's Pushcut. Will receive a message, I think, over SMS basically,
Gotcha.
and then that will trigger something to happen on your phone, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm
I think
thinking
it's a service you have to pay for.
Yeah, Pushbullet is the only one I think I've used that does that kind of stuff. Pushcut.
I think it's Pushcut.
Neat. Triggers, notifications, and widgets for shortcuts, HomeKit, and online automation. Yeah, the HomeKit stuff is pretty cool,
Yeah.
right? Don't
Yeah.
give Matt access to the server unless he's at home.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Or,
Yeah. I mean,
like,
I
don't
always
allow
had
VPN
a
unless he's out of the home.
right. Well, one thing I remember, I always had a shell script for with Datadog, the internal security team was always watching the firewall rules on your AWS
Yes.
EC2 instances to make sure
Yes.
that you're not too wide. They want to limit it down to specific ports and specific IP addresses,
Which I will say is commonplace, not just Datadog.
yeah. But I mean, we've experienced it at Datadog.
Of course.
And so I had a little shell script that would just run and say, what's my IP address from, ICANN has IP address or whatever, and run the AWS command to automatically update that rule.
The security group. Nice.
So that it just sets it, no matter what, I think I might even had it run on like a cron job. Every hour, it just updates that to whatever my current IP address is.
Very cool.
Then I would always be able to access those EC2 instances or whatever else I was doing.
Yeah, I find that's one of those things. It's like that in the DNS stuff. Like when IPs are changing, or the other one that I get into trouble with, and this is more time based, is like let's encrypt certs, because guaranteed I've messed something up with the Acme stuff. And yeah, those are really good ones. Like, let me know if it's coming, and let me know that the bot is actually working.
Yeah. I seem to remember we had some problems with certs going away. There was one of the internal domains, and the cert went away, and somebody was nice enough to get it. I forget what the deal was there. Early Datadog days.
It happens. It's just one of those concerns that, like,
it's hard.
It is.
It's hard, and there's not somebody dedicated to watching it.
Yeah. So at Dash, there was a speaker dinner before the day of, and we were talking to people about, some of the stuff that we're doing and things like that. And we started talking just a little bit about dogfooding, and I think maybe boring people the fact that I just like poking around Datadog and doing stuff sometimes on a Friday night. Like, I'll grab a Frosty Beers and just sit down. Generally, it's like alcohol-free beer, but like I think my brain it gets tricked into it anyway. It's like, oh, I'm having a beer and playing. But one of them is synthetics. And all it is like an SSL check. And I told them, like, this seems really easy, but like I've hurt myself so many times, like professionally in my career, by either setting a certificate too long or too short.
Right.
It's like the Goldilocks problem. I always make the mistake. So I was pretty impressed to see this. Not only that it would like pull up the cert, but also is it called like the chain of trust? So like there's intermediate certs as well as like the root cert. And like all of these have to be valid, because sometimes they'll like rug pull you. They'll pull one of the intermediate ones out, and you have to go through and recertify everything. Or if you're using a wildcard and you've generated a whole bunch of certs from one wildcard, but then that wildcard cert lost its root of trust, it's just a massive nightmare. And I was telling you about this feature that's honestly pretty boring, but if you've done it before, like it's pretty handy. And they're like, that's amazing. I didn't know Datadog could do that. And I was like, listen, I don't know how much we're going to get in sales, like due to SSL stuff, but like, honestly, this is one of those features that you really want. And generally, internally, I'd be setting up some cron job to do the same thing, just to do it. And I do love those sort of like, they're simple features, but I like those simple ones that just tell you what you need to know, in and out kind of thing. You're done. And yeah, otherwise I'd be setting up something with Zapier or If This and That
Yeah.
or some cron job or all of the above, just because like I need
Yeah.
another one to watch it. You know, like what if my first
Yeah.
script failed? I'm gonna run another one on a
Right.
different server with a different service. It's madness. And I love it
Yeah.
as companies as we get more mature. This is my soapbox here. As we get more mature in the ops area, I feel like a lot more
Right.
companies are stepping up with products that like honestly aren't expensive, but take care of, like when I found out about Pingdom, just to like ping a server
Yeah.
instead of
Yeah.
like me running smoke ping internally, which is what
Right.
I'd done for years. It was massive for me. Like just ping the site,
Yeah.
let me know if it's up, get back to me. And that's another
Yeah.
thing Datadog's added is like ICMP requests.
Right.
So I was talking about
Right.
these things to the people and they're like, this is amazing. You're like doing a sales pitch here. And I'm like, I'm so
Yeah.
sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm just a boring person. I literally just pushing around. Like, what else have we
Yeah.
released? What's in here?
Yeah.
What's this button do?
Yeah.
It's fun. I don't know. I like playing with those little
Yeah.
things.
It's great for um, one thing that you're checking or a limited set of things that you're checking for.
Yes.
But as soon as you get to a lot of things or a lot of variables that you're checking, it gets to
Yes.
be a little bit cumbersome. Like I've always wanted to be able to, early on at Datadog,
Mhm.
I owned documentation for a long time, for a number of years. And then now there's a whole documentation team, but it was,
Right.
but then later on, I owned all the training, and then now there's more. Well, of course, obviously, that now there's a training team
There's a
because
whole
I'm not
team.
there, but
Yeah.
there's a whole team. But with training or with documentation, you're building this document that it describes how to do something within Datadog and how to either the instructions for using the product or the training for follow this process. But often there are changes. I mean, there are changes that happen to the Datadog platform many times a day. And not often, but sometimes those changes include the change from a tab-based interface to buttons,
Right.
or the change from the button being on the lower left corner to the upper right corner.
Right.
And and there's no way to identify those types of problems unless your customer says, "What, didn't you QA the documentation? It's obviously in the wrong place."
For the audience, the problem is your docs say press the button at the top right, right?
Yeah,
As opposed to press
but
the blue button, it's
press the
press the blue
button,
button at the top right. Yeah, yeah.
or well, press the blue button, but then it
Oh,
changes to a green
thanks,
button.
red. Yeah.
You're always going to be specific in one way that changes.
And that's just the tip of the iceberg because, like, guaranteed you will have taken a screenshot as well, and you're like, "Oh, this is gonna be handy. I'll take a
Yeah,
screenshot," and then they'll know exactly what it looks like, and then the
yeah,
UI changes hours,
yeah.
minutes, a day
Or
later,
press the
week later.
OK button, and now it's the accept button, or now it's the
Right,
confirm button. It's like,
right. Now,
yeah, that
when
is,
doing docs, did you do like a dependency map or anything like that? Because like I feel like you when I talk to people about docs, and there's a book behind me on really good on docs, but it's like docs
yeah,
should be treated like a product, and they've got upstream and
yeah,
downstream dependencies. What like upstream being like what do the docs depend on when this is the product,
sure,
and downstream is like who depends on it. It's like your clients are going to tell you
right,
when it's broken. But
right,
sometimes it is handy when you treat a page as a product, and like people know, hey, I'm an upstream dependency for the docs. When I
right.
change this, I should let them know because that just does not happen. Like
Yeah,
there's no link to
I'd say
docs that are associated with products. Yeah.
even if you do create those links, there's nothing in it for the your actual product owner to update you. I mean, unless there is some sort
Right.
of executive sponsorship of that program to say, anytime you update your code, look at the documentation to see if anything relies on. But because there's so many places to look, it's not just one
Yeah.
document. It is, with Datadog's training. I mean, there's a whole bunch of courses,
There's
and they
tons.
might all talk about, adding tags. Tags might be, the process of adding a tag can be in basically all the courses. And
Yeah.
so is it now up to that product owner who is updating how a graph gets created? Is it up to
Right.
them to look at all the places where we talk about tags? That I don't know. There is no great solution.
You got it, yeah. Or like if
Yeah.
there's certifications, or if it's something like an API key location
Right.
that you've changed, these kind of things
Right.
that are like real world problems. It's
Yeah.
definitely an issue. And the the reason I was smiling, kind of grinning there, is because there used to be, back in the days of IT, there used to be something that did this. It was called like the Change Advisory Board, which I really didn't like, or the
Mm.
RFC
Mm.
process, which also can be complicated,
Mm.
right? So like, I'm going to change this page, and when I do, is there anything else I need to worry about? Like, who needs to know about
Right.
this? And then you try to document
Right.
who the people are that need to give a heads up. I do feel like when we're going through like a PR process, I guess is pretty typical for a lot of this, or a Jira ticket,
Right.
that a lot of times those links, even though you might have them in your docs, like in Confluence or what have you, generally your
Yeah.
service page will be there. It's one of those things that's like not built into the tool, so I miss it. And
Yeah.
maybe this is just me not knowing Jira and Confluence enough, but like, I
Right.
would like to know what the map is of these services, so I know whether or not I
Yeah.
should or should not like ping
I
someone,
mean, I
hey,
think
docs need to be changed.
if you're providing if you're the page that you're updating has a URL and there's that link in the documentation to that URL, that's an easy thing to check.
Right.
But if it's an image or a description, go
Yeah.
to this page and click this button. Well, no, there is no, yeah, and you can't just search for my page. What do you search for? There's because there's the word page is on every page. I mean,
Now, and this is probably me being new to DevRel, but do you feel like you're a bit of a docs tester at some point in times too? Like, do you ever go through your docs as like a pretend new user to try to see what that setup process looks like, onboarding, what have you?
yeah, I mean, yes and yes, but
Yes,
the
sometimes.
problem was
Yeah.
the problem with at Datadog, when I was the only person updating docs, and now at
Mhm.
Infra, where when I say only person, I'm the only person that kind of like owns it, I guess.
Right.
But there are lots of people that are contributing to the docs. Um,
What is that? The Archie
you
diagram, right? So who's responsible, accountable, consulted, and
right,
informed, kind of thing. Yeah. So you'd be the person
but
accountable.
when I've reviewed that documentation, and this is even if I have the same problem when I'm making pancakes and I need to follow the recipe out of Mark Bittman's How to Cook Everything, which because
Right.
after cooking pancakes 1,000 times, I still need to look at the recipe to figure out how many cups of flour do I add, how many eggs, what, and I still go through that. And it's like a process. Do these things in order,
Right.
and yet, I don't know, 2 or 3 times ago, I forgot to add the baking soda. It's like a key part, and I forgot it, and I thought, "Why do these taste so weird?
Right.
Why didn't"
Now,
I think it was that baking soda or flour. I might have forgotten flour, like a
there's no way you
key
forgot
ingredient.
flour. Baking soda
I was
sounds
like,
okay.
"Why are these so
Flour?
runny?" Yeah, so,
What are pancakes without flour?
and
That
so, I
would
mean,
be interesting.
if you are really familiar with a document and
Right.
you're going through it, it's so easy to skip ahead because you know it, so you don't need to read it. You know it,
Right.
and then you miss stuff, or you
Right.
stuff is missing, but you just fill it in your head because you're not even noticing,
Now,
and
would
that's
you
hard.
go back to the docs and add like a note, like, "Hey, by the way, some people will forget the baking soda here because they think they're done. Make sure you don't forget it," kind of thing. Well, we like those what are they called, like notes, basically. The little like I
Yeah,
think it's like the
yeah.
double greater than, or just greater
But
than.
then you've got like notes for everything because you could forget any one
Yeah.
of those steps,
There's
and the
no way
whole
you
thing
forget the
is
flour.
notes.
There's no way you forget the flour.
It wasn't the flour. It was it was
I've made
something else,
pancakes.
and yeah. I mean, the flour is a pretty critical ingredient.
Yeah, or I've
But
definitely like
yeah,
forgotten eggs, but that's like I just forgot to put
yeah,
them in at the right step, kind of thing. I know they go in
yeah,
there.
yeah.
I do like,
I mean, I'm
this
not.
is a good,
Yeah,
this is
yeah,
a good example. I think recipes are a good example because if you
yeah,
think you know it, just like docs, you'll skip
yeah.
ahead. Do
Right.
you so if you think you know your docs, then I guess the question is, so if you are a tester but possibly not the best tester to repeat a test, do you have other people testing these other than your clients? Like, what does that end loop look like? I guess because
Hmm.
it's not that we've solved this at Datadog either. Like, I'm often going through the
Yeah.
docs trying to look at it with a like a new perspective,
Well, one
I
thing
guess.
that's really nice at Infra, one thing that we do internally every
Hmm.
week or two, we have our internal bug bash, and we have this 2-hour slot where
Nice.
we all get in the same room, well, same Zoom room, and
Yeah.
we go through. We want to test. We want to make sure we covered this particular thing, but
Awesome.
then take a look at the docs and go through the process and add a new server, add a new OIDC provider, add do whatever you want to do, but we're all in the same room together. And so if you encounter any problems, somebody's there to either help out or okay, let's get that issue written in GitHubs so we can track it.
Great.
And so we're doing that we do it every, I don't know, we do it a lot every 2 weeks. I think it is that we do
Okay.
it just before, at the end of the sprint.
Nice.
And that's been great, but uh, uh, that would have worked early days at Datadog because all the developers fit in one
It's hard
room.
to scale. Yeah.
How do you scale that? Yeah, I mean, do you do it to just particular product areas, maybe just the security
Yeah, that's what I
group
was thinking. But
versus
then, of
the
course, then you get silos. Yeah.
logs? But
Yeah.
then you can right click on any graph and jump to any of those services. And so
Yeah.
how do you make sure that those connections are covered? I don't know.
Yeah, I hear you. It does
Yeah.
like it does not scale very well, especially when it comes to integrations. So like
Mhm.
I'm not saying
Oh
like
yeah.
Datadog integrations. I mean I am in this case, but like when you're
Yeah.
talking to business to business or business to business to
Right.
consumer, like get this and that Zapier. Imagine testing
Yeah.
all of the things that Zapier can use. That's a lot of
Right.
things to
Yeah.
test. The
Yeah.
scope that you have to do just to make sure things
Right.
are there is really difficult. So I can understand
Yeah.
like why they've got different tiers and stuff like that. But also, like that testing needs to be done on a regular basis across. I
Hmm.
think we hit 600 integrations. Like we've hit
Yeah.
that point now, and I
It
don't know
was a
what
lot
Zapier
easier
and if
when
this
Datadog
and
was
that,
at 40,
right?
40 integrations. We had like
And
the
I
same
remember
number of
those days.
integrations as
Yeah,
people.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. There was like a ping check. There was an uptime check.
Yeah.
There's like
Yeah.
there's Nagios. There was Cacti. And,
Yeah.
like those are the days. Yeah, it's really
I mean,
difficult to have
I know
everything
that
tested.
I know in um, the CI/CD process, there were, it would spin up hundreds of Docker containers at Datadog to
Right.
do a lot of the testing, but still,
Oh wow.
it tests based on here are these known things that you need to test for, but sometimes not everything is. It's as long as you created the test to test that thing, it can test. But if there's something else that you haven't created that test for, like,
Ah,
oh, it's not just Postgres, it's
right,
Postgres when I'm using it on this particular cluster from Civo, as
right.
well as my cluster on AWS. And there, in that set of three things, bad stuff. Oh, I don't know, something
Yeah,
else happens.
and if it's
Yeah.
Postgres, like while a vacuum is happening or something like that,
Yeah.
like
Yeah. There's
it
so
is
many.
rough.
And then,
I
of
think
course,
it's
anybody who experiences that thinks, well, you didn't troubleshoot or
yeah.
you
Why
didn't
why didn't you test
QA
it?
the product.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's I'm not going to say it's like a lost art or anything like that. We certainly know what tests are, and integration
Yeah.
tests are a thing,
Oh,
and
yeah.
end-to-end testing is a thing. But there are like it's like Rumsfeld or something like the known knowns and the unknown knowns and the
Yeah.
unknown unknowns, and it's like
Right.
known unknowns. Maybe I said that backwards, but it's tough.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
testing all the scenarios is tough. Plus, there's a lot of like third party stuff happening. Like, what do you
Yeah.
do if a portion of the internet is down, or like,
Yeah.
how do you own your own uptime if it
Yeah.
depends on a whole bunch of stuff working? And the internet, of course, is made together of like some like parties that
Yeah.
work with each other basically to make sure everything
Yeah.
works. Like, let alone DNS and SSL and TCP/IP and
Yeah.
ICMP and all the traffic that's actually going through the internet. There's also the parties themselves routing things, and
Yeah.
like the route that you take to get to one path may be completely different the next day,
Right.
and as a
Yeah.
result, could take longer. But like, how much longer? It's just it's like this is never ending.
Yeah. Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I've worked with testers before, which is why I kind of like
Yeah.
this topic. But when you're rolling things out as part of a standard CI/CD process. Having a good test suite is critical, but you
Right.
always have to manage
Right.
that suite. Like add tests, get rid
Hmm.
of the flaky tests,
Right.
remove tests, ideally, that they don't tell you anything. And
Yeah.
docs just they seem to fit in there, but maybe not in the way that we'd expect. Like you'd almost need to
Right.
schedule having a new set of eyes look at the
Right.
docs as a proper test, which is manual testing that we're trying to avoid, but it
Yeah.
feels like it's inevitable.
Yeah.
That's my rant about docs testing.
Yep. I mentioned something a couple of times already. I was
Mhm,
curious, how do you, when you need to build up any sort of infrastructure to test something, you want to test an idea, you want to use
mhm,
Datadog, you want to use any other tools, do you always go, I mean, I know we always at Datadog, we had, it was easy access to AWS and
mhm,
I guess Google and Azure as well.
mhm.
Do you always just spin up something on one of those three platforms? Use anything else?
I'm pretty old school in that I do have like a home lab still, and
Oh yeah, okay.
sometimes just setting up a VM or a Docker container is
Yeah,
generally the approach I'll take for some stuff.
yeah.
When it comes to things like well, AWS and GCP and Azure are good
Right.
examples. Like when you're setting up new accounts, I'll often just do
Yeah.
that on my own. Like figure out like if I'm
Yeah.
new to GCP and I want to add
Yeah.
Datadog or what have you to it, what does that
Right.
process look like? Soup to nuts kind of
Right.
thing. If I was talking to a
Yeah.
partner and they're trying to onboard people from on-prem, what does that look like? The other that I
Right.
have a hard time with are things like VMware or KVM or Red
Mhm.
Hat's whole suite or like actual
Yeah.
Kubernetes on hardware. You end up needing a server of some kind.
Yeah.
And the clouds are getting better at being able to give you different access to ISOs for different operating
Mhm.
systems, but they're not the best at it. Like I really like Vulture, for
Yeah.
example. I'm not sure if you heard of this one before, but
No.
it's like one of those clouds where you can bring your own ISO. So if you need
Oh, really?
FreeBSD testing or Solaris
Yeah.
testing or what have you, for most cases you're good to go. So if you're trying to do like Oracle Solaris, you're fine, but like I don't know, older versions of Solaris, maybe not. So it's VULTR. I don't know if they get popular when Flickr was around or something. But being able to bring your own ISO to something is a massive deal. And then they give you something like NovaNC in a tab so you can actually watch the console, which is another
Mm.
plus. Like being able to see the actual screen of something booting is a
Oh,
massive deal
really?
for me. Yeah, so like
Oh, that's cool.
I'll use Proxmox at home to do something similar, and in the cloud if I
Mhm.
needed, it's Vultr. Sorry, I just kicked my camera there for the audience. My apologies. But like a lot of times when it comes down to those on-prem or hybrid cloud integrations, I will actually set up the environment, go through a demo, and then try to give somebody
Right.
like a Vagrant or a Packer script or a shell script that will get them there.
Mhm.
But I do want to see what that onboard process looks like. So not only
Yeah.
do I know about like the Datadog story, but there's a lot going on. You might like what's the
Yeah.
new Windows Server 2022? I don't know. Let's
Right.
find out. Like how many hoops do I need to jump through in Windows 11
Yeah.
in order to actually log in without a
Right.
Microsoft account?
Right.
Case in point, like
Yeah.
what does that look like? And you don't know unless you go through it. The other thing is like I don't know, maybe Red Hat to Rocky Linux is something I've tested, or
Yeah.
what the VMware process looks like now. It's totally different in
Right.
7 than it was in 6.5.
Right.
Those kind of things I do feel like for the most part I want to get as close to the experience that a user would see, similar to like maybe this
Mhm.
is staging and I treat their experience as prod kind of thing, but I want to get closer to what they see. So not only do I test the steps that they're going, but I try to get that context. Maybe I'm doing too
Yeah.
much, but I do want to get like more. I don't know. I could talk about this for a while, but
Yeah.
like what DevRel means to me at least is like a lot of empathy.
Yeah.
And I feel like to get
Yeah.
empathy for the people that I'm talking to, I want to know this there. So not only can I understand what they're going through, but like it'll actually be genuine too. Cause like I fought that fight at least once and I can talk about like
Right.
the problems I've had with it.
Yeah.
That's my spiel.
Cool.
What about you? What do you do? Is
I've never
cloud?
heard of Vultr. I'm definitely
Oh,
gonna
okay.
sign up and try
I,
them
I
out.
I mean, listen, I'm on the $5 a month plan. That like this, I'm not a big spender, but there
Yeah.
is an instance level where I could just bring my own ISO and I just
Yeah.
use that to cycle through stuff.
That's super cool. Yeah, two that I've just started using pretty recently is Oracle Cloud.
Surprisingly good.
Yeah. And their free plan is, I mean, there's a lot of stuff you get with that free plan. It's really
I
cool.
don't know how long that can last, but like it's a gravy
Yeah.
train right now.
Yeah. Yeah. So Oracle Cloud, and then more recently started playing around with Sivo.
I haven't used Civo. Yeah, you
Uh,
mentioned that before. Is it CEVO? CIVO?
CIVO. Yeah.
Okay, and you said Postgres
And
on Civo, right? Oh, Kubernetes.
um,
Okay,
yeah, so it's Kubernetes.
nice.
And when you first sign up for an account, they give you like $250 credit
Oh,
for
you
a
know what?
month.
I think I've seen YouTube ads for Civo. Like
Oh
not
yeah.
YouTube
Yeah,
ads,
a
but
lot
like
of a lot of
sponsored
people
places.
are using,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I've
I'm pretty
found
sure it
it
was like
through,
minus
I don't
seconds
know.
or something.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I've seen one of those, or TechnoTim, or one of the others that talked about it, and I was
I
like, oh,
also
let me
watched
try this.
TechnoTim, so yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Um,
what do you think? Is this your
I
recommendation?
I mean, I think Sivo's been great for, how quickly it spins up a load balancer for Kubernetes is amazing.
Because that can be a pain in
Um,
AWS. I mean, I
yeah,
love them,
yeah,
but like honestly, it's not great.
yeah. I mean, yeah, trying to get that cluster up and running yesterday on
Yeah.
EKS was a little bit of a challenge, because first off, I spin up the EKS cluster and then I'm like, well, why is nothing starting? Well, because just creating the cluster doesn't add any nodes to it, so there's no worker
Oh,
nodes.
you have to
Like,
add no
what?
groups. Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
had to add a new node group separately. I'm like, oh, that's crazy.
And did you use the
Um,
EKS command line util, or did you go through the GUI?
I I think I went through the GUI.
Yeah, the command line
Um,
util is cool, but like a lot of people don't know about it either.
yeah,
So
yeah,
like there's like an EKS create, which will make all the
yeah.
things that you
Oh,
need there.
oh, will,
But
okay.
but if you like, it's not well
Yeah, but you
advertised
have
if
to
you don't know
know
that it's
enough
there.
about the command line. Yeah,
You have to have gone through the pain that you've just done and then talk to somebody
right,
like me and I tell you like,
right.
yes, I've also seen this pain. Try
Or
this
you're
tool sort
using
of
something
thing.
like Fig, or some of the other tools that will add the auto completion
Right.
in a sensible way to figure that stuff out. Yeah.
Yeah. This is awesome.
But yeah,
So
Sivo's been fun. Yeah.
do we have a like a ref code or something like that? Should I give you a reference
I
code for Vulture? You can give me one for Civo.
yeah, I think I don't know. I know Sivo is great because of that 250 credit for a month. It's only for a month of use, but um, and then there might be another one for longer.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I like it.
So
So
yeah.
I gotta ask though, what is your takeaway for the week or the 2 weeks, I guess? What should we check out?
Mm, mm. Um,
I've got one if you need to think. I can tell you're definitely prepared here. You're looking around on your desk like, what new things did I buy?
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I unfortunately, one of the things that I needed to use today, I'm out of my
Nerdwax.
Nerdwax. I bought this, I don't know, years ago. It was great, but it's no longer useful. It's great for putting on the bridge of your glasses so they don't slide down your
Slide
nose.
down. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But this is useless now. No, you go for something.
Okay, I'm a massive William Gibson fan, and
Okay.
because I'm such a fan, I try not to get a little bit you get invested in stories and things like that,
Yeah.
and you care about how things are presented. However, I'm very happy with the way Amazon Prime has treated the adaptation of The Peripheral into a series.
Hmm.
It's the my only disappointment here is like Prime compared to Netflix. Netflix will like just drop a whole thing on you, so it's like one
Right.
massive long movie, and I can watch it as fast as
Yeah.
I possibly can. Netflix is trickling it out now. I could wait, but unfortunately,
Hmm.
I really really like it, so I've been watching it. I think yesterday it dropped at like midnight, so I was watching until like really late as well, while the fireworks were
Yeah.
going on outside. But like it's really good. The book I still think is better because there's a lot of
Yeah.
details in the book. Gibson does a lot of research and there's a lot of
Right.
new things that you could learn just in terms of like
Yeah.
ballistic materials and it's just like weird
Yeah.
stuff that you never think to look up. But he'll just include these
Yeah.
like trade words
Yeah.
and stuff like that in there. So there's a lot of like texture to the book that the
Yeah.
series doesn't have, but it is really good because the concept, like the idea that he's putting
Right.
forth is really interesting. And I would highly recommend it to anybody. I'll talk to
I s-
anybody and
yeah.
anyone about this. So by all means, if you
I
watch
saw
it,
the
read it, let me know.
trailer. I saw the trailer. It looks spectacular.
It it is
And
great.
then I think I saw like a review on, I don't know, the Guardian or somebody,
Mm,
some other review of it, and they said it is one of the worst adaptations they've ever seen of any book to any sort of TV or movie. It's so horrible. Well, they should be put out of business for putting this thing out because it's so bad. And yeah,
I
you're
I
never
I
going to please everyone.
I can't agree, but I also can't completely disagree. It's tough
Yeah,
to translate something. So, like Clockwork
sure.
Orange, for example, if you've ever read the book, has a whole
Mm,
vernacular. Like there's an appendix at the back if you get the right version that explains all the
yeah,
words. And honestly, it's a bit of a triggering movie, but
yeah,
a lot of those words were removed in the movie for the same reason because no one will
yeah,
be able to follow along. So, like in
yeah,
terms of adaptations, I mean, yeah, is it the worst? I don't know. It's certainly not the worst of my books. As someone who
yeah.
really liked the novel, would suggest watching.
Yeah, I've heard the same. Like, well, I've heard the same about every book to movie or book to
Yeah, the
TV
Hobbit's a great
program,
example. Yeah,
or Dune. I've heard that
another
about
great
yeah.
example. Anything with big
um,
fandom, right, is going to
yeah,
have yeah.
yeah. Um, well, I did think of something that is a great find this week, or I
Okay,
guess I finally got access to it this week that I am very excited about, and that's Lex. You know anything
Lex. All
about
right.
Lex? Lex.page. Um, it's an invite only thing for now.
Ooh.
It is AI writing tool, basically like a Google Docs with some AI stuff, magic in there
Okay.
using
Okay.
GPT-3. And so some of these other things like Jasper, I think it is, or some other tools will, you give it a bunch of keywords and it'll write the whole document for you, the whole blog post. And I thought,
Hmm.
come on. There- Oh, I don't believe you. And there's examples like this was totally written by AI, and like, I don't know. But what's neat about this Lex is it will not write the whole thing for you. It
Okay.
will as you, and but it's just a writing tool. You're starting to write your blog post, whatever it is, and you're a couple paragraphs in, and you're like kind of like lost, like, well, where should I go next? Just do a command enter, and it will drop in the next paragraph based
Ooh,
on what it
that's pretty
thinks
cool.
you might want to say.
That's pretty
Now,
cool. Because then your job is the
often
editor or the curator. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right. And so you can think, well, that's interesting, but I don't really like that. Command enter again, it puts something else down. Command enter again, it puts something else down. And some of those things are like, oh yeah, I didn't think about going in that direction. Let me go in that
Right.
direction and get rid of what it wrote, or keep some of the sentences because it's it's not like the sentences it wrote are really good. So I mean, sometimes it's garbage, but generally it's pretty good. And so you could take it as is and then continue writing and then command enter again. And then another neat thing it does is once you've got this document, there's like a button for it to come up with a better headline for what you've written.
Oh,
And
nice. I
and
suck at
so I
headlines.
did that. It's like, oh, that is a lot better than what I came up with. I mean,
I'm
just
terrible at
like it's like
headlines.
6 words, 7 words. Like, how can it be much better? But it was like, oh my god, that's a much better way of putting it. Yeah.
Nice.
So it's pretty cool. It's by
Is it
the
Delhi?
people.
It sounds like Delhi.
It is using it's using GPT-3. So I don't
Okay.
understand
Yeah.
where, because that is all sponsored by Microsoft. I think Microsoft's the main funder of that whole stuff, Dolly and GPT-3 and all those types of things. And so I thought they get like first dibs at commercialization type stuff.
Gotcha.
Um, so I don't know. I mean, they're hoping to make money off of this, obviously, but it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm just looking through other. So it's Every in this case is the company behind Lex.
So every has a email subscription.
Very interesting.
So it's a set of newsletters, and one of the original people behind the newsletters, uh, had, I guess he got a developer to build this thing out in
to
a
write the
few weeks.
newsletters for them.
Yeah. So yeah, right, yeah, and again, it's one thing that's different compared to some of the others is it's not saying that it's going to write the article. It's just going to help you go to the next step with the article.
Yeah, so it's a little bit better than writing prompts in that you've got someone kind
Right.
of suggesting bits for you. I like
Right.
it. I like it.
Now
I feel like yeah, go ahead.
it's not because because the training for GPT-3 apparently stopped in 2021. Anything
Mm,
that happened in 2021 and later is unknown to it, I think.
gotcha.
So if there's but generally the stuff you write is about concepts that have existed for a lot of time. I don't know.
Right.
So it's not always perfect, but it can
Okay.
usually figure out based on what you've written and where you want it. It's magic.
That's really cool. And sorry, just one more question. Does it learn about your style as you go along, or is it sort of already trained?
Sure.
Well, I guess we'll find out. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
I do think moving from the people writing, like instead of like human in the loop, so the AI is writing and you're just like the approver at the end. I do think
Yeah.
the collaborative stuff is really where we're going
Yeah.
to just like unlock a lot of this potential.
Yeah.
Is where like it's two people sort of working together, sort of like uh, the generative network is that are combative. So basically, where they're arguing together about
Hmm.
concepts. I'm not sure if
Hmm.
you've seen those before.
No.
So I think they're called GANs. They're generative adversarial networks. So imagine you and I are
Hmm.
arguing about what the color purple looks like and like how close to blue or how close to red it is.
Uh-huh.
It is like a
Uh-huh.
perfect example. And you get two networks to say, well, I know purple to be this because it's been classified this way. And the other is like, no, no, no. I've got the Flickr data set. This is the best. And then they sort of word together and like this, nah, not
Uh-huh.
close. So how about this? And then they just sort of bounce it back and forth. So as they iterate through
Right.
it, it gets closer and closer to, but I don't know, middle purple, right? So if you just typed in
Right.
purple into Google and looked at all the images, what would those look
Right.
like? Like where would they be on the
Okay.
purple or the blue to red scale, that kind of thing. So GANs are pretty neat. And I do feel like
Hmm.
a human in the GAN network is really where we're gonna unlock stuff because like you've got
Right.
your training and that's cool. You may actually know more than I do about this, but my bent on this because it's me producing the article
Yeah.
is this. So
Yeah.
let's go in this direction just a little bit. Let's
Right.
weigh my opinion a little bit more than your network's opinion.
Huh.
Yeah, anyway,
It reminds me of 4 or 5 years ago at Datadog. Datadog stopped. Like all activity inside the company stopped
wow,
completely. Completely the whole company
nightmare
completely
scenario.
shut down for like
Yeah.
3 days. Because everybody was focused on this one discussion. I'm not sure if it was in Slack or in HipChat before that, because there was that transition
Oh
from
no, I know
HipChat
what
to
this
Slack.
is.
It was all about hot dog versus sandwich. The entire company shut down based on, is a hot dog a sandwich? And in fact, now if you are inside Datadog and you say anything about hot dog or sandwich, there is a bot that says that is not allowed. Do not talk about that topic. Yeah. And then of course, then it got even worse when people started adding in, well, is a burrito a
Sushi.
sandwich?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, is sushi? Yeah.
Sushi
So
sandwich.
yeah,
Carbs
the
on the
whole
outside.
company
Yeah.
shut down.
I feel like in
It
France
was
there may have
amazing.
also been something about was it pain au chocolat versus chocolatine? Have you heard this one?
Oh
It,
no.
it depends on the area of France that you're from, because there was an angry bot at one point in time that would auto reply to you to tell you that absolutely it's chocolatine. It's like basically croissant with chocolate, right? It's a little bit different than that.
Uh-huh.
We're
Uh-huh.
dumbing it down here a bit, but yeah, like
Wow.
absolutely no. This is the answer. There can be no other answer. And maybe it's because we're embarrassed, so we can say with authority, it's got to be this. I thought it was so
Oh.
funny. So I looked it up, and apparently this is, yes, in fact, a big thing in France. What you call the bread tells you about basically
Oh,
where you
really?
are in France or where you came
Okay.
from. Yeah. And then when you go
And
to
whether
other
you're right
places
or
in the
wrong.
world, well, yeah. And where you go to other
Okay.
places, you can tell where the chef's from because they'll give the thing on the menu a different
Ah,
name. And you'll see people will
okay.
change them. And yeah, it's very interesting
Right.
to me.
Wow.
Sorry, I think we
What
went over time. We got to prepare
I think
our
we went over
takeaways a little
time.
bit earlier.
Well, this was
Well,
fun.
Matt, as usual, it's always been awesome. Listen,
Yeah.
thank you very much for hosting me on a weekly basis. This is always fun.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll have to think of a topic before Although we didn't think of a topic this time, and it was pretty good.
I had some topics. Come on now, we could talk about open
Yeah,
SSL.
okay.
You're not interested in open.
You did
SSL
have some
vulnerabilities?
topics, yeah. Yeah. Did we
Okay,
actually talk
I'm
about? We
happy to
never
watch
got around to it.
Well, there's always next week we can talk about open
Next
SSL.
week.
People haven't patched it yet. It just came out today.
Yeah. Yeah. Alrighty.
All right, sir.
All right. See you next time. Bye.
Let's see if we can find the end